So welcome to the Herland Report, Dr. Ron Paul.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you.
We admire you so much. I live in the Middle East, and so many people in the Middle East seem so voiceless today because the media is owned by the large corporations. We hear only perspectives of the ultra-rich, so to speak. And you are a loved man all over the world for doing the great work that you've done, both here at the Liberty Report, which I advise everybody to follow, and you focus on the respect for national sovereignty and liberty and the respect for all nations and peoples, and also in this at this divisive moment in the United States as well. My first question to really takes us back to U.S. four-star General Wesley Clark, who has stated that much of the disarray we see today started happening around 1993 or even before, when the neocon movement in the United States gained power with Paul Wolfowitz and Dick Cheney. And I would like to ask you, because he speaks about a coup in foreign policy that took place at that time, that made America go from being a nation defending its values to being an aggressive international force. What's your analysis on what happened?
Well, there's been quite a few dates that people use to describe what's happening today, whether it's in the 90s or the 80s or what. And each date contributes a good deal. But there's a lot of us who are in the freedom movement, the libertarian movement, see that our problems started even before that. We think about the progressive era. We think about the early part of the century, a Woodrow Wilson era, because he wanted to make the world safe for democracy. And if you didn't want to do it, you weren't a good American. And we got involved in a war we shouldn't have gotten involved in. So that has gone on like that. And also at that time, we, as a country, introduced the notion that big government could be financed in an easy way, just print the money. So we introduced this notion of central banking in our Federal Reserve System, which other countries have, copied us on, which we think is very damaging. But then in that same year, 1913, we introduced the notion that all income belonged to the government, and they would allow us to keep a certain percentage. So it was the income tax. So this guaranteed that the American system emphasizing individual liberty would be undermined, and it has systematically been undermined. Culturally, there's still a large number of Americans that might represent a view that I endorse, but that we've been sort of silenced. We're not on TV. We don't get TV program, and we're excluded from the universities. And even now, we have the Googles and the Facebook people sort of monitoring us so that we can't spread our message as easily as others. So I think there's two worlds going on, but there's a big contest going on, because the system where this culture has deteriorated, so has the economy. In spite of all the positive things, the economy is built on debt and malinvestment, money being spent in the wrong way, and it's coming to an end. And so that's why we're optimistic from our viewpoint of pushing and understanding liberty, is because the current system doesn't work. We see it somewhat in comparison to what happened in 1989. With the collapse of the Soviet system, because it was a failed system. It wasn't because we spent more money on weaponry. It was because it was a failed system. But I think we have a failed system now. It's affecting our culture. We have people who are competing, for what will result. So that's why you have the cultural Marxists, in our universities preaching dishevel. They wanted to disrupt our culture so that they can mold it back together in a different type of a centralized control. It's cultural more than economic Marxism. So that's the contest going on. But certainly the introduction of the neoconservative has been a big deal. And that, of course, is about the time I started getting involved in politics and took these positions where our traditions didn't mean this. We were supposed to be non-interventionists. We were supposed to stay out of this. And there were a lot of people who listened and paid attention. But, of course, there were a lot of people in strong opposition to what I was saying. But we're still trying to reach out. So we're delighted to be on a program with yours, because we find out that even though we think our numbers are small, you have found out that there are some people around the world in other countries, and we always love to hear from them.
We all used to feel sorry for the people that lived in the Soviet Union, didn't we? We said the poor people, they're under such propaganda. And now we see that precise thing happening here in the West, and what we label as a totalitarian system, really, because it's a repression of free speech. Yet the West used to be such a beacon for free speech.
I was thinking about this the other day because there's a lot of addiction in this country, opioids and alcohol and all this. And that used to be a characteristic of the Soviets, the Russian people that show pictures that they just felt destitute, and they drank more and all. But that's sort of, what we can be charged with now because we have gone in this direction. The other thing that happens, the more authoritarian a society is, the less creativity there is. There's less intercourse between people, talking and sharing ideas and developments. And of course, the Soviet system didn't develop anything, but that is happening to us now. The only thing that we export now are dollars, and we get a good deal because we have managed through our economic and military power to maintain a dollar system, and therefore we have a tremendous advantages over that. But it's a system that is deteriorating. It has to be reversed. But my message is there still is a decent-sized group of people in this country who know what is right and want to go in that direction. And I also am optimistic because numbers aren't the whole thing. You need a number of people. You can have 8 or 10% of the people, if they know the right thing and do it and are in a place of influence, somebody that gets on TV and can reach out, there's a lot of influence. So ideas are very powerful. That's why I resent the people who think we spread American exceptionalism, with guns and sanctions and all this. I think we spread mayhem when we do that. You spread a good message with, just providing the information with these ideas. And that's why I frequently use the old quote that, when you have that, armies can't stop us. They cannot be stopped because ideas can be spread in spite of armies, in spite of authoritarianism, even though it's rough haul a lot of times because governments don't want to give up an inch of their power. So this is the struggle going on now. But the people who are on the defensive now are the people who believe in this superpower state. Even the neocons, in many ways, are on the defense because everything they do fails. Look at the Middle East. I mean, all our policies have failed, and we help our enemies as much as we're supposed to help our allies. When you think about how Iran has come out of this mess of all these wars we have created, so our system is failing in a very narrow sense, and of course, some people would like to say I'm unpatriotic about it. I think it's good that bad ideas are failing. I want the fiat currency to fail. I want people to have honest money. I want liberty to prevail and not, what we need are better authoritarians. We need better economic planning. And I don't believe that. We need a lot less. We need people to plan their own lives in a personal way. We need the people to spend their own money. And we need to accept as Americans the idea that all foreign governments can deal with their own problems and that we don't get involved. That doesn't mean we endorse bad government, but that we don't have the moral authority to take armies, march in, and control their elections, which we too often do. We control their elections and interfere like we're going to spread our goodness. That is a good way for failure and more chaos.
And it's been interesting for us speaking to many Americans, regular folks, when we've come here. And so far, all the people I've spoken to would agree with you on all that you say. And this points to, I think, something very serious in the West, because over 90% of the American media is owned by only 6 corporations, and half of those corporations own the weapons industry here. And who cares about the people? And who knows what they think, even here in the United States, because they sure don't have a voice. So that's also, I believe, one of the reasons of the frustration of the neocons and much of what's happening now. It doesn't matter how much the CNN shouts about Trump or he did this, he did that, because there are more issues that are pressing in the world than whether Trump, did his shoes properly today or not.
And there's little empathy by those who are in charge, because I've dealt with them. I've been in Congress a long time with them. And when I bring up this subject of you're taking away people's personal liberties when you do this, and they say, well, they don't know how to take care of themselves. And they actually believe that they're ordained to take care of people. I can recall asking two different chairmen of the Federal Reserve Board, well, what you're doing with these low interest rates, you're punishing the people who want to save money, work hard, save money, and take care of themselves in old age. No, you take it down where they can't even make 1% on their money when the interest rate should be 4 or 5%. And they said, well, yeah, they would acknowledge that, and that is the case, but that's one of the prices that we have to pay. And just like the Madeleine Albright famous quote about the Middle East, in Iraq, when she was asked about 500,000 Iraqi children dying from our bombs and destroying their infrastructure, he said, well, that's the price we have to pay for us doing our good deeds over there. So there's so much hypocrisy, but they don't have empathy for the people. I think the only system of government can show real empathy is a government and a people who recognize what personal liberty is all about, to allow people to have their liberties and allowed to make their own mistakes and allowed to assume their responsibility and allowed to reap the rewards of the work they do. That system has proven to be the best system ever, and yet it's under attack systematically right now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ron Paul, for accommodating us here in the great state of Texas and taking your time to meet with the Herland Report from Scandinavia. And we would like to endorse you to all our viewers, and we know so many watch you from all over the world. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Great being with you.